Hello and welcome to Geography e-learning. Like it says on the sheet here, this is basically just going to be my voice over the notes that you already have. So I recommend you have your notes open so that you can listen to the presentation, but you can add to the notes that you already have and have been adding information to. So, if we go back to what we had been talking about previously, we had talked about how the rule of the czars had ended. The last czar, Nicholas II, called in the army to break up a factory worker strike, and it was not successful. The army just wound up joining the strike because it was basically their families that were working in the factories. So the group that started all of that was a group called the Bolsheviks. And the Bolsheviks, if we go back to slide 11 here, the Bolsheviks were going to be a group of revolutionaries who really bought into the ideas of Karl Marx, this concept that there was going to be a rift between the people who were in the working class and the people who were in the ruling class. And eventually, the group that owned the factories, the tension was going to be so bad with the workers that eventually the workers would just get to a point where they all, on their own, came up with the concept of, oh, hey, I don't have to do this anymore. I can rise up and I can take over. The problem for the Bolsheviks was that they looked at Russia, they saw the exact right opportunity for all of this to happen, and it simply was not occurring. So rather than completely go with what Marx believed, and that everybody would naturally come to the same conclusion, they actually went into the factories, went onto the farms, and told people, hey, you need to revolt. So that's really going to be the first way that they're going to start to veer away from Marx's original idea. And that's going to be important when we get to how the Soviet Union is going to fall apart. So they go in and they artificially start the socialist revolution. Once they have taken out the czar, now it's a battle for who's going to ultimately run the new nation. They have to have one person who is seen as their leader, and they pick Vladimir Lenin. Obviously, being a Bolshevik, his political ideas are going to be based on the concepts of Karl Marx, but he's going to take those ideas and twist them to meet his own needs. In order to gain the support of the people, he goes on sort of like a presidential campaign where you go out, you meet the people, and you kind of give them an idea of, hey, here's what I believe. He basically went out and said, I have four objectives, four things that I want to see happen in the new Soviet Union. Objective number one, withdraw from World War One. Of course, with the people, that's going to be popular. The one thing they hated as much as the czars was war. He was promising to get them out of war. Second objective that he had was to move the capital back to Moscow. Now, this was not really going to do anything. This was simply a PR move. When they looked at St. Petersburg, they saw the czars, they saw all the corruption, they saw how they had become really, really poor. By moving it back to Moscow, Lenin is still going to be taken care of. He's still going to be at the top of the food chain. He's still going to have everything that he could have in St. Petersburg. But it was a symbolic thing that was going to sit well with the people. Third objective was he wanted to control all industrial and church property. This one he had to sell to the people a little bit because it wasn't a good thing on the surface. What he said was this: if we control, the government controls all in industry, we can make sure that all of your jobs are safe and they're going to continue to be there. If we control all church property, we can make sure that the churches are going to stick around. And that was going to be the place where most people were going to get their education. They were going to find out what things were going on. So it was a way to make sure that those things would be stable. And then his final thing was promised workers an 8-hour workday, which was, of course, going to be popular since up to this point they could be worked as long as the owners chose to make them work. That ends for this slide. Move to the next step on your sheet.